All right, so this first video is going to be just getting started with Advanced GIS Lab 5, Spring 2024. In this lab, we're going to be looking at green space and parks in Orem, Utah. And we're going to use Model Builder and custom scripts inside of table calculations and for labeling to make our kind of workflow a little bit more customizable and simple in GIS. So in Lab 5 assignments, it's sitting in the weeks 9 through 10 module. You go in there, there's two things. One, there's the Word doc file. So, download, open that up. And then there's a second download, which is a zip file, which contains all of the data. So you need to download that. I've downloaded that and placed it in my OneDrive. I've right-clicked and extracted it here. And so I can go inside and you'll see that I've got a start APRX file or project file. So I should be able to click that up and get going on Lab 5. So let's do that. And meanwhile, I've opened up my assignment here as well. Shrink this up a bit. Okay. So while that's opening, maybe make this a little smaller. Just as we're getting going. Okay, so hopefully you're seeing not too much of that flashing. Okay, so you can see that everything opened up with exclamation points. That's because when I made this start file, it was mapped differently, and within the zip file can't see everything. So we're gonna have to remap those. And so we can do a couple of things, probably to make our life easier. Let's map a new folder, add folder connection. And then I got to find where I put that. I think that was on OneDrive in Lab 5. So I'll map in that Lab 5. Okay, is that this one? I believe so. Let's see. Well, let me just do something here. So the thing I'm worried about is, am I actually mapping to the right folder? Because of course I created this somewhere else as well. Okay, so this is my new Lab 5. Okay, so in the geodatabase, you're going to see what you need here. Okay, so you can see I have another Lab 5 here, which also has that, but that is not what you guys are going to see. So you'll see this Lab 5 folder, which will include a start toolbox and a geodatabase. And that's pretty much it when you map that folder. And that's pointing at this set of things right here. Okay, so I guess what I would ask that you do is make sure that you're mapping to that geodatabase. So what we can do is to repair these data sources, we can right-click data, rematch the address. Oh, that's not right, I guess. Go into properties, go to source, and click set data source. And then we'll have to navigate to that folder. And so in this case, I need to make sure I'm doing that correctly. Okay, there it is. So I get in there and then it's got only one option. And inside of that geodatabase, it should work. Click on that. And that should, once I say okay, bring up the interstates. It's not capturing all the rest of the stuff in the geodatabase immediately, which means either I didn't set something up quite right in the properties of the map in terms of kind of how it draws things. There might be a way, there used to be a way in ArcGIS, ArcMap, to basically store relative addresses, and then once you repaired one, they would all map together. That might be possible here in ArcPro too, but I don't know where that is, so I'm going to go ahead and just keep moving by setting the data source the correct folder as we did before. So now this is Utah Parks. Say OK. Now my parks have shown up. Those are all city parks, so you can see them. And then we'll go again to municipalities, set data source. Now it's gotten smart, it knows where I'm looking. There's my towns, and I need to do my county. I have the state of Utah for my project. And then I have to do these Landsat products. So you can see, and if we look over here in Lab 5, the title is Green Space and Park Space in Orem, Utah, utilizing Model Builder, custom table calculations and labeling. So the learning objectives are to use Model Builder to iterate, clip, and move files out of a geodatabase. To revisit normalized difference vegetation index. We did sort of touch on that in Lab 4, as well as other raster calculator tools. So build more experience with raster calculator. And then customize field calculations inside of tables of feature classes, and to customize how we classify things within attribute tables using some simple Python. And then we're also going to customize how we label features using another code set called Arcade, and some built-in tools within ArcPro. So those 4 things are the goals. And then you're going to create a map of parks within the city of Orem that has some custom labels and symbols. You're also going to create a table showing how green space has changed within the city of Orem over the last 20 years using a model of normalized difference vegetation indices, and formal park space in neighborhoods. So we're going to look at that within park areas and then in the city as a whole. And then you're going to display your results not just in figures, but you're going to embed those figures in ArcGIS story map. And the point of that is one option for your final projects in this class is to create story maps of your project. You can also create posters or a traditional report. All these are options, but I want to, have us practice story maps briefly for here. And so you've been giving these data sets in that geodatabase and that starting point APRX file. And so over here, we can see we've got 2 parts of this Landsat 9, July 28th, 2022, row 8, column 8, bands 2 through 7. And so we've pulled up bands 4 and 5 in here, or I've customized it into there because those are what we'll need for NDVI for that 2022 image. And then we're going to compare that to this July 2021 Landsat NDVI for the Utah County area. So I've already given you the NDVI for 2001. You're going to have to build it for 2022. Okay, so, but we need to map these. So again, properties, set data source, go into your folders, find the correct folder, and you'll see that it's in here, NDVI. Okay. I believe I said it just now, but it's not popping up. There it comes. Okay, so that required a second attempt there. But you can see the values range from 1 to -1. Remember, this is normalized difference vegetation index. Values kind of above, say, 0.2 or 0.3 mean pretty healthy vegetation. Below that means not so much within the pixel of that Landsat. And so we want to do the same thing for these other ones. So go in properties, set data source. And now you need to point at the correct band. So this was band 4. Better do that right. Say OK. And get band 5 as well. Okay, so those should load. And you can see those are over a slightly different area, but we're going to be comparing things in Orem, so it doesn't matter too much. Okay. All right, so we've got everything loaded and mapped correctly. So that would be a good point to go through and probably resave your project. And I didn't do it here, but you probably should save it to, you know, your own name at this point. Instead of Lab 5 start, it would be Lab 5 your name or your group name. You are allowed to work in groups of 2 to 3 students on this lab. And the purpose of that is just so we can speed along and get you more time to work on your final project, since we're only about 5 weeks out from the end of the semester. Okay, so part 1 of the lab is to look at Model Builder to batch, clip, and export from a geodatabase. So imagine that you wanted to move your what you're doing, your workflow, to the program QGIS. QGIS does not access geodatabase raster files. It doesn't play nicely with, um, well, rather, some files it doesn't access well in the geodatabase. And so that could be a reason to do that. Some of you may have attempted this earlier in the semester, trying to go back and forth between QGIS and ArcGIS Pro, and that's pretty cumbersome. So we could do this more easily using Model Builder to iterate through files. Okay, and so this would also be a great way to share files from your local computer to your shared drive, or reverse, because you could batch move things. And some of you may have run into this issue in the first part of the semester, although maybe less so this year than last year when I was doing this class. So we've opened up our starting point. We've remapped everything. So we've got step 1 done. If we open up Model Builder window, either through the Analysis tab or through Catalog by right-clicking on the TBX file, the toolbox file, and creating a new model and adding it to the project. There's a nice tutorial for using Model Builder here. Hopefully I don't need to use that right now as we're doing this tutorial, but it has been a little while for me, so bear with me. So we're going to create a model that will iterate through, so it'll be a batch model, iterate through all the rasters within the geodatabase, clip them to the project extent of the city of Orem, and then copy them as .tiff files to a folder outside of the geodatabase. So to do this, you'll need to bring in the following iterators and tools to the model builder. So iterate raster, clip raster, copy raster. And so I've provided you kind of what it should end up looking like here. So you're connecting your geodatabase, iterating through rasters, and then you're clipping them to the city of Orem. You get an output there, and then you're going to copy them and put them in a new folder. Okay. So if you go up, you'll see that I say Open Model Builder by either through the Analysis tab. So we click on Analysis. You can see Model Builder here. Okay, the other option was to right-click on the toolbox over here and that right? Not sure about that one. The TBX file's right here. Oh, there it is. So we right click, we click new, and then a new model. Okay, so I have a model here already, so I'm gonna actually delete that one because I don't know what it is. Let's make a new model. Okay, and then I'll open it. Oh, that's the one I had just opened. All right, so it's blank at this point. Okay, so I'm going to go down to this graphic because that's going to be helpful for us. And I'm going to kind of move this up, make a little bigger here for us. Okay, so this is our model builder window. And basically, if we go to analysis tools, we need a way to bring in some things into our model builder here. So click on model builder. Oh, here's our toolbox up here, our iterators, etc. Okay, so a variable, we can bring that in, and you can do that way. You can also bring in tools by searching for them. So one thing I want is iterate raster. So if I click that, iterate rasters. The model already has an iterator. Okay, I think I double clicked. Okay, so here's my iterate raster. And so I'm where am I going to work? So I need to say where I'm working. So I'm going to go to my folders, and I'm working in lab 5. Okay, and I'm going to be working on rasters that are in what file format. Let's go back to my catalog here. Look at those. These are file geodatabase rasters, I guess. So I don't know if I need to specify that at this point, but let's see if I can. Don't see that FDR. I'm going to leave that alone for a second and just see if that works. Okay, so you can see I have lab 5. Oh, and if we look back over here, I should have hooked it up to the geodatabase. So we can go back in here and let's drill down further and click the geodatabase because that's where we're searching. Now we don't have to specify the raster type that we're looking for because it really only wants a file geodatabase raster in there. Okay. Okay, so now you can see that it kind of looks similar to what we had before, right? It sees over here the rasters that are in that geodatabase. Okay. So you can zoom out on this. I don't know if that's going to help you guys see it. Probably not, but you can also move these things around. Whoops. Somehow I got an extra one of those. But sometimes it's useful to move things around just to know what's going on in your model builder. All right, so I've got my iterate raster. I need to bring in clip raster. So go back to tools, clip raster. Okay, so I click clip raster. Because you have to double click there. So I'll bring that over here. And so you can see that it's supposed to go from the raster that you're working on iterating through to the clip raster, and then it spits out a new one. So I'll input my model variable. Okay. And then the output extent is what we need. And we need ORM. So how do we get that? We need Utah municipalities to have an ORM. So we have to do some other work here for a minute. So let's hold off on this. Let's go back to the map. And so you can imagine, how do I basically find ORM? So you can go into the attribute table of Utah municipalities. You can search for ORM. You could also select, right, in another way, selection tools, but I know it starts with O. So I find ORM. Now I've highlighted ORM, and there it is right there. Now, if something is selected in a feature class, like ORM is here, we can always right-click on it, data export, and we can output it as ORM city. Okay, and that will give us a new feature class that's just ORM. Okay, so if I turn off Utah municipalities, we can see that we just have ORM. So I can go back to my model now, and wants me to start again. So I want to go through my iterator, and there's ORM city now. And I want to make sure to click to use the input features for clipping geometry, because we're clipping rasters. Rasters like to be kind of rectangles, as you can see right here. But if you click this, then they'll cut to the cookie cutter shape. Okay. And the output raster, that we kind of want, you can see, to be basically, we're going to iterate, so it needs to kind of have some way to kind of show you that something new has been done. So there's this option that we can see over here, %name_ORM. So you could do this any way you want, but name just means, if you do %name%, that means that it'll pull up whatever the original name was. And then you could say ORM or ORM city, whatever you wanted, and that'll get appended and added to the new file. Okay. And should be able to say okay now, and you can see that it looks something like the model builder over here. ORM, going to clip raster, going to ORM city name. Okay, so we're getting there, right? One other thing that I didn't talk about was when I went back into iterate rasters, wildcard. And wildcard would be like, if we click in the info button there, a combination of star and characters, whoops, that help to limit the results. So if you only wanted to do this for the unprocessed Landsat data, if you did like star L, it would only do the rasters that started with the letter L, so it wouldn't do the NDVI. But we're going to do it for all of them in this case, so I'm not going to use that wildcard. There's not so many rasters, but you could imagine a case where maybe you had like many different Landsat data sets and you only wanted to process on one. So that's what you'd use the wildcard for. Okay, so we leave that. Okay, so now copy raster. Okay, so there's my copy raster. Now, if we go into copy raster, the input raster is the %name Orem City, because we've clipped it. Now we want to copy it. And then the question is where we're going to put this thing. And I want it to go into that folder. So I'm going to say copy folder or something, right? So I'm going to choose that, and then, oh, I have to, sorry. So actually I can stick it in lab 5 itself, or I can choose this copy folder, but inside of there I need to do something like %name. And I'm not going to add anything else, because basically it's going to just take that name that I already produced, like the clip to Orem City name, and it's going to put it in, it's just going to copy that in there. So why add more characters? And then I can choose my file format that I want it to be, and I'm going to choose something that plays nicely with QGIS, or something that can be open in programs outside of GIS altogether. So JPEG or a TIFF would be a good choice. In this case, I'll choose a GeoTIFF. And pixel type. So these are, I don't know if I need to choose that or not. Let's see on this. It says optional, so that means that it should do whatever was the input. So I'm going to leave it alone, but if you saw that you didn't get the right type of values coming out, then you'd want to specify that. But since we have different types of rasters, so one is an NDVI, which is -1 to 1, and has decimals. The other ones don't have decimals. They're like 16-bit. So one is some sort of 32-bit float, and the other 16-bit. I better leave that alone because we have multiple types of rasters. Okay, so let's just say okay. So boom, now this is looking quite a bit like this, okay? All right, so let's save the model. Okay, so I press save. And so this model is here. I didn't give it much of a name. That was maybe a mistake. So I could also save as, right? And we can save it as, what are we doing here? So we're doing batch, clip, copy, raster. So, okay, that's maybe more explicit. Okay, boom, there is my batch, clip, copy, raster. So if I refresh this, that should show up. Okay, so why are we taking all this time to do this? Because, you know, you could have gone and done these processes, and probably would have been done by now. But the point of doing this is to make these models is something that you'd save, and it will save you time in the long run over your career, right? So you've got this model built already. You're going to want to save that somewhere in your work, in your computer. This is something that you could bring into any project, and then shorten your time in your workflow. And so this is something that's really common. And if you're doing processes where you're iterating rasters, copying them to another space, this is going to save you clicks. It's probably going to save you 10 minutes each time you do it. If you were a GIS professional over your career, you know, this is going to save you hours of your life. So there's a good reason to do it. Okay, when you're doing it for one lab in a GIS class, not as good, right? But it's good habit to build these things. Okay, so we save that. You can click validate. Okay, looks for any errors, basically. You don't necessarily have to. Okay, so what should we expect to happen? So you see this copy folder here now shows up. We've got the Lab 5 start geodatabase, all the original files in here that we mapped through. What's going to happen, right, when I click run is we're going to get those clip rasters showing up in the geodatabase, and we should also get them showing up in the copy folder. If so, then we've got success. Okay, so let's click run and see if it works. And you can see it's building pyramids and calculating statistics for each one, so that's nice. Should function really well. You can see it's iterating through and doing it again and again. We don't see them necessarily popping up in the catalog on the right. It says it's done. It didn't close on completion because I don't have that checked. That's okay. But yeah, things need to be refreshed here. So let's like refresh this one. And boom, we've got something in there. They don't look quite right. They say XML. I don't see a .tiff file there. Let's refresh on this one. So in here, I can see the Orem city nicely showing up. Let's go into this copy folder, refresh again. Okay, that's a little suspicious. If I go back to my map and say I wanted to bring in the NDVI from the copy folder, is that even going to work? I don't think it worked. Okay, it did work here, right? So let's go to that one, drag that one in, and we zoom out, turn off these other rasters, and Orem City, we can see that we have the NDVI just for Orem City there. So it did iterate through and clip them, but it doesn't seem to quite have worked going out to this folder. Let's check that. I'm going to check that here. Oh, interesting. It is there. I can see these TIFF files, but it's not showing up quite right in the catalog at the moment. So then if I go back to map, I'm going to remove this one. Okay, and then if I look in here in this folder, I'm in copy folder, you can see that I have this file, NDVI July 2001. That's the biggest file. That is the TIFF file, but it didn't add .tiff to it. Interesting. But if I pull that in, I bet it works. Let's see. So let's grab it, drag it in here. No, it doesn't work. Okay, so I must not have done something quite right. Let's go back to batch clip and let's go into copy raster, input raster. I said format.tiff. Did I need to apply transformation? I'm not sure. I'm going to add .tif right there. Okay. And say okay. And you can see I did that before. Wait, let me see. And delete that again, say okay. Yeah, it doesn't seem to quite get that. Interesting. I thought that would be automatic. Okay, so let's see if that works. So save, and then we'll run it again. I think it'll just overwrite the file name, so shouldn't get too many things going. It says it's done. That was too fast. Refresh. It did it for one of them, but it didn't iterate. Weird. Okay. So I've iterated on these Orem City. Okay. Let's try running again. Okay, here it goes. I'm not sure why it only went through one there. Maybe I had something selected. It's redoing everything. It should hopefully just overwrite prior files. So I did need to specify the extension at the end of the name. I didn't think that would be the case since I selected the file format. Thought that would happen automatically. So after this runs, we'll see that it works, and then I'll probably, you'll save your model, and then we'll move on to part 2, and I'll probably stop this video and begin another one. Okay, so now it says it's done. Let's refresh these. Okay, so inside of copy folder, it actually somehow copied in both the clip and non-clip ones. If I refresh this one, what does it look like? Oh, okay. So because it went, that's why. Because it went through all of these, and so you got to be careful here because I did %name, and so we basically got double what we wanted. All right, so keep that in mind, but it did appear to work. So for instance, if I bring in band 4 of Orem City, it should just be Orem City, yeah. Okay, but I have double the files that I want at this point, so you might need to go through and delete the ones you don't want. You don't want to get a bunch of space kind of overrun if you keep rerunning this over and over again. But anyways, I'm going to save this. I guess what I would probably advocate you do is control and delete all those ones. And then I'm not sure about these XMLs or not. They might already be part of that, so I'm going to leave those alone. You get this Orem City, that's too much. So I'll delete those as well. And we could have set this up a different way too. If you didn't want to save the Orem City clip originally, you could have at that point saved it to another location even. But I wanted to demonstrate kind of going through multiple steps, so we didn't do that. But if you didn't need to save those here, you could delete them as well. All right, so I'm going to save my project, and we'll stop this video, and I'll pick up a second video for part 2 of the lab.